Transgenderism, trans rights, trans issues, big things in the news these days. It's something that it's such a trend in the news that some developments become more worrying when you become aware that certain influencers or certain individuals who are famous in the LGBT plus world may be encouraging young people and even children to do things that are rather extreme to their bodies. Thus far, the world has been talking about people's rights to access things like puberty blockers for children, which are irreversible and stops children from developing any kind of gender in a way. Reassignment surgery to have breasts removed or breasts added, things like this. But there's an influencer in the United States called Dylan Mulvaney. And Dylan Mulvaney has undergone facial reconstruction surgery to look more feminine, a process of feminization, as he has called it in the past. Mulvaney is not just a regular Joe Soap from the point of view, why do I even care about this? I care because Mulvaney went to the White House, invited by President Biden, because he was a major influencer. And just to confirm, an influencer is somebody who sells products or sells narratives and sells stories and ideas online and gets paid to do so by others. So this Mulvaney fella was allegedly a famous influencer, a trans influencer. I don't know who he was, never heard of him until I came across the story in the Daily Mail. He's put out on his Twitter and he's promoting now his new facial reconstruction. And my concern is that he's looked up to by the LGBT plus community in the United States anyway. And he often speaks about children and children's rights to access the change to be who they want to be. And when we look at this facial reconstruction surgery, it does get very worrying. So I'll just put that story up here now. What happened there? What the fuck? Okay. So we'll cut from there. So controversial trans influencer invited to White House by Joe Biden shows off bruised and scarred face after having feminization surgery. Operation sees bones cut off and sanded down. Looks quite brutal. What do you think about this thus far, Padraig?
Yeah, so
business maybe.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. At this stage, that's all it appears to be. Like, needless to say, like these are things that are difficult to talk about, but I suppose we do because people should be able to talk freely. But I don't see anything here so far in this discussion. That's personal choice so far.
Okay, well, let's look at what Mulvaney said about visiting the White House and things like that. A viral TikTok star and transgender activist visited President Joe Biden in the Oval Office to discuss her transition and transgender issues in the US. Dylan Mulvaney, who documents on the app her firsts as a woman in a series she calls Days of Girlhood, revealed that she and members of Now This News were visiting the White House for an interview that will be made public on Sunday. This is a quote from Mulvaney. I'm ready to step up and show trans people we're not going anywhere and that trans kids, they deserve a fighting chance to be their true selves. She says in the video posted Thursday, which has since garnered over 500,000 likes. What are you thinking now, Padraig?
Yeah, so there's obviously one word there that defines the whole thing really, and that's kids. Like there's no place for children in that conversation, in my view. They're not old enough to be involved in making decisions like that for themselves. And when you're talking about surgery and stuff like that, these aren't reversible. And there's somebody who categorizes themselves as an influencer. Well, surely that means the impact that person has in society is to influence other people. And speaking about children, don't be influencing children, like, you know. So definitely there's a moral issue in that. It's certainly the reason why we should be talking about it.
Yeah. I'm just worried about where everything's going, and I've spoken to some young people who've gone to gay youth groups. I have experience of them myself years ago. And years ago, when you went to a gay youth group, you were either gay or bisexual or lesbian. And on an extremely, extremely rare occasion, you may come across transsexuality of some sort, but very, very rare. I've spoken to people who've gone to gay youth groups now, and they're almost go through a diagnosing process or a diagnostic process about what are you. And a couple of young people I've known for a very short period went through a process. They were confused about their sexuality. And from hanging out in the gay youth club, they came to want to call themselves, these were females, by a male name, and fell out with their family over it and just went through a tough time. And within a few months, they'd forgotten about it and they just got on with life. And it was just the impact and the influence of going to the gay youth group and the culture that's there today put them through that process. But I would be worried about people who maybe, young people who maybe need attention, seek attention, don't get attention at home, have certain personality traits, maybe a bit more needy, and maybe how they would fall into that. Because I've seen discussions about, and advocates of this kind of stuff, and they advocate that parents shouldn't have an input. They say that parents, it's up to the child, and the parents could never understand what the child is going through, and that's all very scary stuff to my mind.
So at the beginning of what you said there, you're describing it being rare, but there is an instance where every so often somebody comes along and they are transsexual and
Very
they
rare, yeah.
So I suppose what we're saying is like they should be supported and there should be everything in society for them to just be themselves and not have any discrimination against them. So that's something we all agree on. I think the problem then is that how has there been such an explosion in the numbers? It's kind of almost more like a cultural thing. So how is that happening? Then we're looking at influencers and going, okay, so there's media influence happening that like does obviously influence and change trends in society. And like we should be humanitarian at all times and we should be respectful of people, but should we be promoting trends which are to the long-term detriment of people? Like there are people out there that have had surgery and have regretted it. And
I facilitated a discussion in a gay club in Dundalk. When I say club, I don't mean a nightclub. I mean an organization. And I wanted, this many years ago, I wanted to put gay people face to face with their own bigotry and with their own prejudices and things like that. So one of the speakers I had then was a trans gender woman who became a man. And he told me at the time that on a very, very rare occasion, a baby is born and their gender is indeterminate at the time. And that was his case and the case of others. I'm just not sure. There are psychological effects to this, and there are zeitgeists, or there are cultural fads that can develop, especially when you've got young people that have more freedom than ever before. And at the same time, we're in a far more dangerous world and a far more abusive world in many ways than ever before. And so I think young people are a lot more vulnerable in many ways. And so I just think a tight rein would have to be kept on this kind of stuff when it comes to children.
well, wasn't there a big scandal last year about a clinic in the UK that Tavistock, yeah, like it seemed that there wasn't tight controls and checks and balances on that at all. Like so,
the Irish government was sending children from Ireland over there to facilitate their so-called.
And it was closed down, wasn't it?
Yeah, listen, this is such a new thing. There's nobody leading any way, if you know what I mean. And so abuses are open there. And one of our problems with our modern way of doing things, with everything being privatized, is everything is a business, including these operations. These are private operations performed. They're a business. And so you'll have lobby groups who are representing these businesses. And that's one of the problems when things are not done in the interest of people, but in the interest of money. And when you have an entire system and culture that's privatized, it means that emphasis can be placed on things where maybe emphasis shouldn't be so grand and so great. And that's one of the examples.